Well, I just think it's a really interesting conversation to talk about ethics and morality in conjunction with the Prime Directive.
Yeah.
If you are a blind Federation, I shouldn't say blind. That's not the right way to say it. But if you were following Federation protocol and rules of the Prime Directive, that the idea behind that is that you correct me if I'm wrong or elaborate, Ryan, for me, because I may not express it correctly. But basically, the idea is not to get involved and not to change the course of a new civilization, species, or whatever, not to get involved to the point of changing or altering their course or their life in the way that it's going.
Yeah,
is that a fair way to say that?
Their development. Yeah,
okay.
Because it's so that you don't, knock them off their course as the development of civilization. But it's usually supposed to be pre-warp civilization, because pre-warp civilization, we don't know what they're doing, we don't know where they're going to go. But once the thinking is, once they learn how to do warp speed, once they've developed that, then all of this information is going to be readily available, because they're going to meet all these races, all these things are going to happen. So once they've achieved warp speed, pretty much anything goes. And that's why the Prime Directive didn't really apply too much, because these guys are already out exploring things.
And yet it did. And yet it did apply. And then you ask yourself, like, if the morality is to save this individual and they came to DS9, why do you at this point then the Prime Directive says we can't get involved? Well, they involved themselves in our world and our lives. They're on the station now, and here are the laws that we are a part of, that they must adhere to by coming into our world. Second of all, it really drove me crazy that they were able to easily turn off the shields, reverse polarity. Our shields have been reversed.
Reverse polarity.
And I'm like, well, that was easy. And then beam on, and then they've got this magic shield. None of your phasers move it up to level 6. Still doesn't happen. Couple of them knocked down, but they get right back up. And then they have this huge explosion to get through the brig. He gets in there, and then Cisco and O'Brien are just standing behind him. Going, hey, what's up, dude? Watching them have a talk. That really drove me crazy.
No guns. No guns at all.
It wasn't honest. They just, if you look at it from Cisco's point of view, he has no idea who these people are who just basically attacked the station, beamed on, started shooting, hightail, all over the place, and they're all hiding, shooting phasers back. It's gunfight, high noon at the gunfight at the OK Corral. And then everybody's like, oh, okay, I guess it's over. Meanwhile, there's a giant explosion. And then they go, we're going to talk privately. And then they're hunting this humanoid being, this sentient being, and now we can't follow the Prime Directive, but then we kind of go against that, which is fine, because the morality and ethics are, how can we help him if we can't grant him asylum if he doesn't want it, which he didn't. And that's the other thing. Sorry, I'm going to trail off on this. Why isn't it like, well, that's what Tosk wants, so give him what he wants? Who are we to say, oh, no, we value your life? But that's not what I've been raised my entire life.
That's exactly the argument, yeah.
And at the same time,
That's where.
No, hold on, Sirach, because I want to hear your thought on this. So in my thought, I almost would have rather seen Cisco give him back and go, that's what he wants. Who are we to tell Tosk what his life is worth or what his purpose in this world is? And this is their society. And and even from the hunter, there's great reverence for Tosk. I mean, it goes back to the gladiator, right? It was reminiscent to me of gladiator, although they were slaves, but right. I don't know my history very well on gladiators and how that all worked. So it was an interesting philosophical debate, and that's what made it so Star Trek. That's what made it a really great episode.
Yeah, exactly.
In asking and having us as the viewer ask questions. What is the right course of action? You were going to say something, Sirach.
No, I was going to say that when I was listening to the episode, it made me think of slavery, for one, because they were justifying that this particular race was genetically selected for this purpose, right? And that was an argument made during slavery. And another thing is, in the same vein as slavery, if someone were to come on a third party person and, for example, ask a slave during the time of slavery, do you want to be free? Do you want to, do you want to be released of this thing that's over you? Maybe they wouldn't openly say it because of the conditioning that they've had, and because of either the fears or pressure of what that means around the people they're saying it in front of.
Yeah.
So I looked at it in that way, and I thought that's one of the moral questions that were brought to the forefront, whether it is okay to treat a certain group of people like this, even if they were, genetically created or modified or whatever it is to function in that way. Is that right? And is it right to take advantage of people and use them? And so I think that really begs, for me, it brings a nice parallel, a segue to slavery. That's what I look at when I hear that. And that's one of the questions that I thought was brilliantly kind of retold in this way. But it seems that it brings up some of that those feelings for me.
That I agree with that 100%. And history does back up what you've said. There's obviously stories, from 150 years ago when, think of it this way. If you've been a slave for 35 years of your life, your entire life, you're fed, you're sheltered, you're told what to do. It's a horrible, shitty life to us from the outside. But if you never went to school, if you were never taught to fend for yourself, and then suddenly people say, okay, good, go, you're free, go make a life for yourself, you're screwed. You're like, what? Well, I don't know how to do that because I was never taught to. I was never even allowed to. And suddenly I'm homeless, I'm jobless. I only have one skill that I had to do because this plantation owner or whatever, like they're more screwed once they were released. Now, obviously we know it's still the right thing to do and we're better for it. But that does back up your point that, like, even if that they're willing participants to a certain degree, that's kind of like following the letter of the law, with the prime directive and all that. But then there's the morality issue of like, well, sometimes you have to just step in and take your lumps and not follow the rules all the way for what we think is the moral best thing to do.
It's an interesting battle in my mind watching Star Trek, the battle between morality and ethics and following the prime directive. It seems to conflict at times. As I don't feel it's right or morally I should say it's morally reprehensible what they're doing in hunting Tosk and what have you. Then the question is, how much does Cisco, the Federation, get involved to stop it, or not stop it and let it go? Essentially, they just let it go. Instead of stopping it, they said, "Okay, well, we'll just help him get back to his hunt." So if you think about that, then if you take you go to another scene or another episode, how does that sit in one's head going, these people are hunting these other people and there's nothing we can really do about it?